Coming up on our newscast, close to 60% of the nation are expected to travel for Chuseok gatherings. With most COVID-19 restrictions lifted, heavy traffic is expected. Seoul's unification minister proposed talks with Pyongyang to discuss reunions of war-torn families. The statement was made on the eve of one of the biggest family celebrations for both Koreas. South Korea and the U.S. will hold high-level deterrence dialogue in Washington on Friday. In the first such meeting in almost half a decade, they'll likely discuss ways to bolster efforts to deter North Korean threats. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. The 4-day Chuseok holiday begins tomorrow. Already a lot of people are hitting the road for family gatherings. Our Shu is standing by at the toll gate to give us an update on the traffic situation. Shu, where are you right now? And do help us paint a clearer picture of what's going on out there.
Hi Daniel, I'm out here at the Seoul toll gate located just south of the city, which is a major thoroughfare for those heading to other parts of the country. And as you can see behind me, it's getting late out here, but there's still a fair amount of traffic passing by. Now, if one were to depart Seoul right now, it would take them around 5.5 hours to arrive in Busan. Now, the traffic is heavier than it's been in recent years because this Chuseok is the first holiday since the onset of COVID-19 that the social distancing rules have been lifted. There are no longer restrictions on the size of family gatherings, and they have waived the tolls on all the country's highways. The authorities are projecting more than 30 million people to travel during the 4-day holiday. The average number each day during that time will be 10% more than last year and 20% more than an average weekend. Data from the Korea Transport Institute suggests that more than 90% will be traveling by car. Around 7% will take bus and trains, where eating will be allowed for the first time since the pandemic.
So, Shu, the traffic is expected to be heavier than in recent years. And at which hour will the roads be the busiest?
Daniel, a survey by the Korea Transport Institute showed that most people plan to start traveling around Friday morning and then return on Sunday the 11th. So the traffic will be the heaviest during those hours. During those busy hours, it could take up to 10 hours to travel from Seoul to Busan, and to return to Seoul from Busan, it could take up to 9 hours. To ease the traffic, the government's going to let people use the highway emergency lanes, while drones will be used to spot cars that are not following the rules. And with the heavier traffic, there will be more temporary restrooms set up at highway rest areas. Also, to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, there will be PCR testing centers set up in 9 resting areas around the Seoul. Now, that's all I have for now. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Shu, thank you for being out there for us. We appreciate it. Moving on to other stories now, the South Korean government requested publicly that Pyongyang cooperate in arranging reunions for war-torn families, almost all of whom are now very old. This comes as it's been too long since the last such session was held. Han Sung-woo has the full story.
Family ties cannot be broken by differences in systems and ideology. But 70 years have passed with people still not knowing whether their parents or siblings are alive. We're running out of time.
On Thursday, South Korea's unification minister Kwon Young-se made a public proposal to North Korea, asking the regime to engage in government-level talks to bring families separated by the Korean War back together for reunions.
We have to solve this problem before it's too late to even use the term separated family. It's not enough to hold one-time on and off reunions for just a small number of people like in the past. We need to come up with a swift and fundamental solution using all resources available to us.
Today, the number of people in South Korea still living who are on the list to attend such reunions, should they be held, has fallen to 43,746, and almost 70% of them are in their 80s and 90s. Stressing the urgency of the situation, Minister Kwon pledged the government will do all it can to help them see their loved ones again.
The South Korean government will enter negotiations with the North with an open mind. We will give consideration to North Korea's preferences for the talks in terms of time, place, format and agenda.
But observers say it won't be easy because ties between the two Koreas are now very strained. North Korea has, for now, practically rejected South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's so-called audacious initiative of improving the North's economy in return for real steps toward denuclearization. Kwon said, however, that Seoul will keep knocking on Pyongyang's doors, even if the regime doesn't respond positively to Thursday's proposal. The last time an inter-Korean reunion of separated families took place dates back to August 2018. 한성우, Arirang News.
Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo review strong response that's different from actions taken in the past if and when North Korea conducts a nuke test. That's according to the nation's foreign ministry on Thursday at a press briefing in Tokyo where the top envoys of the three sides met to discuss North Korea issues. It's reported that the response to such threat from the regime will definitely be different this time, but no details were revealed yet. South Korea and the U.S. will hold high-level meeting to discuss ways to deter North Korean threats. The sessions are being held for the first time in almost 5 years. Officials will cover the so-called extended deterrence, meaning deployment of American strategic assets. Baeunji provides a glimpse of what to expect.
For the first time in more than 4.5 years, South Korea and the U.S. will be holding the Extended Deterrence Strategy and Consultation Group meeting, or EDSCG. This brings together the allies' vice ministerial-level defense officials and diplomats. From Seoul, Vice Defense and Foreign Ministers Shin Bum-cheol and Cho Hyun-dong will take part. As for the U.S., Colin Kahl, Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, and Bonnie Jenkins, Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security, will sit down for talks. South Korea's Defense and Foreign Ministry said in a joint statement on Thursday that the officials are going to cover comprehensive measures for deterrence and ways to make those measures more effective. There will likely be talks on conducting tabletop exercises in case of a nuclear threat and deploying U.S. strategic military assets on the Korean Peninsula. The last EDSCG meeting was held back in January 2018 as the previous administration was concerned such dialogue may provoke North Korea. Next week's session comes after South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and U.S. President Joe Biden agreed to resume the meeting as soon as possible during their summit in May in Seoul as part of efforts to counter North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats. Baeunji, Arirang News.
Japan will investigate the possible involvement of a pro-Russian group after 20 websites across 4 government ministries suffered disruptions on Tuesday evening. According to the nation's chief cabinet secretary, its government is looking into the cause. Killnet uploaded videos on Wednesday evening claiming responsibility for the cyber attacks. Hirokatsu Matsuno said the investigation team was aware of Killnet's allegations. Russia has taken retaliatory measures against Tokyo for joining in Western sanctions against Moscow over its war in Ukraine. Russia recently scrapped an agreement with Japan to allow former Japanese residents to visit disputed islands claimed by Japan without visas, triggering a protest from Tokyo on Tuesday. The People Power Party, which has been going through a leadership crisis, approved the appointment of a new interim leader and will also have a new floor leader soon. The ruling bloc is hoping this will get things back on track and help them better support the Yoon administration. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
Is the ruling People Power Party finally about to end this months-long crisis? The party believes it has taken the first step to do just that by launching a new emergency leadership on Thursday, just 2 weeks since the previous one kicked off.
I declare that the launching of the emergency committee has been approved. I declare that the appointment of the emergency committee's chair has been approved.
The turmoil was initially sparked by the suspension of its ex-chairman Lee Jun-seok, who got caught up in allegations of sexual bribery. But that was followed by the suspension of its interim leader with a court ruling in favor of Lee's injunction, prompting its previous emergency leadership to virtually dissolve. The new leadership will mainly be tasked with restoring internal unity and public trust, providing a boost for the Yoon Suk-yeol administration's policy drive as the ruling party. Taking the role is Deputy National Speaker Chung Jin-seok, one of the party's longest-serving members and is considered to be close to President Yoon. He will complete the rest of the leadership committee by next week.
The primary goal is to stabilize the party internally, so I will nominate the rest of the committee members from different regions under the theme of unity.
Shortly after Chung's appointment was approved, full leader Kwon Song-dong, who's been subject to growing criticism over his mishandling of the party, decided to resign, as he previously hinted.
I asked the party to swiftly elect a new floor leader. I will continue to work for the party as one of its members.
This way, the party's leadership is looking to start on a clean slate with a new interim leader and a new full leader set to be elected on September 19th. However, ex-chairman Lee Jun-seok, who automatically loses his post upon the launching of the emergency leadership, once again filed for a court injunction. The party so far remains confident that the court will reject it this time, as it has made revisions to its charter aimed at avoiding the legal flaws cited in the previous court decision. 이경은, Arirang News.
The chairman of the Democratic Party is indicted for allegations of violating election law during the presidential campaign. The Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office charged Lee Jae-myung on Thursday for making false statements related to the Daejangdong project scandal and another in Baekhyun-dong District, both in Seongnam City. The main opposition bloc's leader was summoned on Tuesday but did not appear, claiming he answered through a written statement. He is not currently being held in custody. The ruling party and the government held talks on measures to address damage caused by typhoon HInnamnor. This includes making sure people get insurance money paid out quickly for cars. Also to make improvements for safety at underground parking lots where several lives were lost due to flooding. Kim Bo-kyung shares with us what was discussed.
The ruling People Power Party and the government have come up with measures to repair the damage caused by typhoon HInnamnor. Following a joint meeting on Thursday morning, it was announced that there will be a focus on preventing certain tragedies from happening again, such as the deaths caused by flooded apartment complex parking garages.
For apartments that are already built, local government, land ministry, and the interior ministry need to come up with plans, so we asked for them today. And for apartments that are going to be built, the party will come up with legal arrangements so that there won't be big disasters at apartments.
Meanwhile, the People Power Party and the government also agreed on swift financial support for those who are suffering losses from typhoon damage. The Financial Services Commission will pay out insurance money swiftly for claims made for submerged vehicles, which amounted to around 7,000 in total. There will also be financial support centers set up on Thursday in the special disaster zones, the cities of Pohang and Gyeongju. Regarding insurance payouts for storm and flood disasters, around 70% is backed by the government. But the party said it will increase the rate the government is covering by reflecting it in next year's budget. Even though the finance ministry approved around $36 million of emergency relief funds, there is scope for additional funds if needed.
It is important to secure enough of a budget for damaged regions. Though 50 billion Korean won had already been put aside, if it's not enough, we have asked the finance ministry to provide more.
Meanwhile, to be better prepared for natural disasters in the future, the party asked the Interior and Safety Ministry to update the response manual against disasters in the era of climate change. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Ahead of Chuseok, when people often give gifts of money, the country's banks have been topped up with around $3 billion in banknotes. The BOK has issued the cash during the 10 business days before the holiday begins to meet the expected increase in demand. The central bank supplied around 13% less money compared to last Chuseok because this year's holiday is 1 day shorter. The prices of restaurant food soared, so people in Korea are looking for cheaper ways to get their comfort items like pizza and fried chicken. Supermarkets have been happy to oblige, offering takeaway at half the price of a restaurant. Lee Jae-hyun zooms in on this trend.
Half-price chicken, half-price pizza, and even half-price Chinese dishes. Half-price food is undoubtedly seeing a boom here in South Korea as eating out gets more expensive. It all started with fried chicken, one of South Korea's all-time favorite dishes. The average price of a portion of fried chicken at major franchises soared to over 17,000 Korean won, or around $12 over the last year. But with major supermarkets selling fried chicken at half of that price, consumers have started lining up at stores to avail of the deal before everything sells out. And since then, this half-price trend has spread to include other food items like pizza too. This store sells large sizes pizzas for around $5, and they don't look or taste much different from other pizzas that cost around $22 here in South Korea. One assistant manager working at a pizza restaurant selling half-price pizzas says the number of customers is increasing.
With sky-high inflation, consumer demand for low-priced food is soaring. I see more and more people visiting the store between 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. when we provide pizzas at half price.
One large supermarket even sold popular Chinese deep-fried sweet and sour pork dish 탕수육 at half price for 7 days too. The average price is more than $10, but 탕수육 from the supermarket costs half of that at a little over $5.
As a consumer, this is great. We can never get the food at this price.
I'm a student, so it's nice that I can buy food at a lower price. I think half-price food may slow the pace of franchise food price rises.
However, some franchise companies say food sold at supermarkets and franchises are two different things and should not be compared.
First of all, the size of a chicken cooked by a supermarket is smaller than at a franchise, and franchise food is cooked after orders come in, while a supermarket cooks everything in the morning, which means a difference in quality. One supermarket official even admitted that they could offer food at lower prices because supermarkets don't need to pay additional franchise fees or rental costs.
He added that it's up to customers whether they would prefer lower-priced supermarket dishes or food from franchised sellers, as both have their own pros and cons. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
September 9th is an official observance in South Korea to celebrate hearing. In the past 5 years, the number of people diagnosed with hearing loss has risen by 20%. A lot of them made full recoveries thanks to regular therapy. Shin Young sheds light on how one hospital is making rehab easier and more accessible.
Once a month, Kang Bong-sun has to come to the hospital and get regular checkups. It's been 2 years since he partially lost his hearing, and he still has to visit the hospital regularly to check up on his hearing aid and do rehabilitation exercises. Being 74, it's not that easy for him.
It's quite a lot of work, but I know it's important because if I don't get regular checkups, my hearing seems to get worse. I think we need to raise awareness of hearing loss itself to make treatment more accessible and easier to do in our daily lives.
3 out of 10 patients express discomfort even after wearing a hearing aid. Doctors said this is only natural because hearing loss requires regular monitoring and care. With that, it's the only sensory disorder that can almost be completely cured.
If the hospital is too far for patients, they tend not to come and get regular checkups. Then a problem will be found in their hearing aid. They'll also be slacking off on their rehab. Eventually, they'll lose more of their ability to hear.
Normally, as part of their rehabilitation, patients would come inside big rooms like this at the hospital. Once they're in here, they'll try to detect sounds coming from all different directions. And to save them from having to come to the hospital on a regular basis, this center has thought of a way for them to do the same exercises at home using VR technology. Patients can do the same type of exercise anytime, anywhere, as long as they have this VR headset. Hallym University Medical Center thought VR tech would be the smartest way to help patients and hospitals. To help patients hone their ability to detect which direction sounds are coming from, a big room with many speakers and a machine is needed. But the reality is, it's difficult for hospitals to equip rooms like this because it takes up too much space.
Now hospitals don't need these big rooms or the bulky tech that runs the whole rehabilitation exercise. Instead, they can just provide VR headsets where the patients and computer do the work.
Hallym University Medical Center is now going through its final checkups before commercializing its smart invention set for next year. Shin Young, Arirang News.
Esports grew exponentially over the years, with pro gamers enjoying global celebrity status. Korea has been a perennial powerhouse in many different categories. These days, League of Legends is one of the most popular games. 4 teams are duking it out in this fall's 2022 World Championship. Kim Hyun-sung takes us to the thick of the action.
The heat is on. It's a nail biter. 2 teams, 1 last remaining seat. Only the winner makes it to this year's League of Legends World Championship. Fans are sitting on the edge of their seat, cheering on their teams on the top of their lungs. DRX and Leaf Sandbox, top-tier teams in the League of Legends Champions Korea, or LCK, went head-to-head. According to spectators, tickets were hard to come by, selling out almost immediately.
I love the player depth from DRX. Seeing the game here so vividly, I can feel my heartbeat rising.
I liked Leaf Sandbox after seeing them suddenly rise to the top. Their game power is wild.
I guess the good thing that esports has over sports, that is, you can basically play anywhere, where regular sports you require a lot of equipment, tool, and large areas to play the sport. But
Glory went to DRX after a close 3-2 win.
Personally, it was really difficult for me, so I'm really grateful for this chance.
And with that, 4 teams in Champions Korea are set to compete in the 2022 World Championships. Korea and its outstanding players in the League of Legends are garnering attention from around the world. In this year's Spring League of the Championship in Korea, viewership reached a new height of more than 5 million people. The majority were overseas viewers.
LCK is accepted as global premium content, and not just in Korea. LCK has been commonly acknowledged as the best league in LOL esports for the last 10 years and has put on some top performances.
And Korea's league is growing year by year. Just compared to last year, viewership jumped up more than 40%. Also last year, the global esports market was valued at more than $1 billion. In less than 10 years, the market size is forecast to jump to over $5 billion. And with an avid fan base, top-tier players, and worldwide recognition, the League of Legends Champions Korea is bound to go from strength to strength. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
A similar weather pattern of wide temperature gaps and clear skies is expected tomorrow. Unseasonable heat will continue for Seoul with highs of 30 degrees Celsius. The mornings will be relatively breezier, creating big contrast in temperatures. That also applies to other regions as well, such as Ansan and Uiseong. And the long weekend for the Chuseok holiday starts tomorrow. Moderate conditions are expected for inland regions. For those driving home, there should be no concerns about the weather as clear skies will prevail. However, clouds will start to increase as we get through the weekend. But the good news is that on the actual day of Chuseok, which is on Saturday, we'll be able to enjoy a full moon. Morning lows in Seoul and Gwangju will be starting off at 19 degrees. As for the daily highs, Seoul will be reaching 30 degrees, Gwangju 29, Busan and Jeju will be reaching 27 degrees. On Saturday, the capital region will start to see increasing cloud coverage with wide temperature gaps. For Jeju Island, long spells of showers are expected until next Monday. Have a great long weekend and hear the weather conditions around the world.
It's time for us to wrap things up. As always, thank you for staying with us.
The stage of global urban diplomacy will be Daejeon. UCLG, with 240,000 local governments from 140 countries around the world,